Hello, everybody. This is SeetherCord,
And it's your boy Hysteria here.
and today we're doing a little bit of like a podcast to discussion thing because who on the internet has not already started a podcast these days?
I haven't. That's why I'm here.
Me too. But yes, I'm here with Hysteria, YouTube channel, which is known as. You can introduce yourself there. YouTube.
Hysterical Hyena. That's me.
YouTube.com/Hysterical Hyena. I don't know how the URL is these days. But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. Today, we're going to pretty much just discuss the furry fandom and what we think about it as a whole, along with some questions I have for both of us to, really answer about them. So, you in for that?
Yeah, I'm here. That's why I'm here. That's
Okay. Okay. So, first question I really have to ask for you is how did you bring yourself to joining the fandom?
Oh no. I was. I don't know. I always hear the story of like I was a huge fan of like old Disney movies. Like I loved Robin Hood and I loved like all those other things. And like that's everybody's story, and like that's my story as well. But I remember like the defining moment. I was on. This is gonna sound really bad, but I was on like the weird side of the internet, and I was browsing. I was browsing porn, and I was browsing porn, and I remember seeing this blue critter. I'm sure that she is probably a lot of people's like very first like everything like introduction to the fandom. I'd never played Star Fox before. I'm talking about Crystal, obviously. I saw this picture, and I could still pull up the picture. It's one of those photos by what's that guy's name?
Hey, I don't want this video to get age restricted, okay?
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's a thing by Dr. Comet, and it was one of those pictures. I was like, whoa, what is this? This is different. This is weird. So I clicked on it, and like the rest is history. But yeah, like it was one of those.
Wow. That's an interesting story, join the fandom through porn. But yeah. For me personally, I feel like I've kind of joined through, word of mouth. And also, I think I remember back about nearly 10 years ago, I remember I first seen it through like YouTube because I used to like browse YouTube back in the days of like 2008. And like, God, I've been on YouTube for over 9 years now. I feel old. I'm going to be balding soon. But anyway, I noticed that, and I joined the fandom because at first, when I saw like videos about the furry community, I saw like, I personally didn't have a problem with it, but I wasn't really into it, and I didn't really get it. But then as time went on, then I got invested with other fandoms, which I personally just did not like being involved with, like through the Brony fandom, the Legend of Zelda fandom, the Star Fox fandom, and then eventually I ended up getting myself thrown into the furry fandom. It's like the only one that's really stuck for me this long. So. And I would say I enjoyed it for the most part, and I personally, but yeah, I pretty much got involved through that form of way involving, my own interactions and encounters of what I found on the internet. So that's my personal gig with that. Anything else you'd like to add in terms of how you found it?
No, I think that kind of just sums up everything there.
Got you. How open would you say you are as being a furry in your own personal life?
I mean, usually it's like one of those things where it's like only like close friends, and even then, whenever people like I don't really know all that well, like ask me about it, like now, like I mean, as we sit here, you like look at my like character or whatever, like the little green guy, I always portrayed him or like told him off to be some kind of like character I created because I was really into animation growing up, and I always like drew a lot, so it was like this is a character like Sonic the Hedgehog or whatever, and I compared him to like a character who was just there was always a disconnect. Like with me personally, there was a disconnect between like my furry self and my other self, like my Adam, and then there's the green guy. So I always try to keep those two separated.
Oh, that's cool. When it comes to me personally, I feel like when it came to me being as open about being a furry, I would say that when it comes to my day-to-day life and when I have conversations with people, I wouldn't say that I'm that open about it. I'd say I mostly would bring it up when it's necessary or feel like it would be most interesting to bring it up. Like, because I do know certain furries who like make it like a staple of their personality, which I don't really agree with. That comes in terms of like even other parts of yourself, how people like to make specific things about themselves be their whole personality, which I don't really agree with doing personally. Right. But I like to make being a furry, one of my staples of, what best represents me artistically and not just part of my personality and such. But that's why I kind of limit myself to not really bringing it up as much unless it's necessary or unless it's like a business thing.
Right. I agree with
Yes.
that.
Thank you.
Keeping the two separated is always good. Whenever you just like, that's who I am, like, that is whenever I have a problem with certain people. Usually it's not everybody, but usually I have a problem with people who are like, this is who I am, I'm Firefox 27 or whatever. It is like, okay, well, I'll be seeing you, buddy.
Yeah,
Probably
I got
not.
you. Pretty much. Another thing I would really like to get into is what do you think of the furry community as a whole? Like, what do you think of the people? Where do you think it's heading and such?
Oh man, I'm about to lose all my subscribers.
Wow.
I
Your sub count is gonna be like leafy
yeah,
eventually.
It's gonna drop. It's gonna drop. I personally, and a lot of people watching are gonna like it. I don't really like the fandom usually, and part of the whole aspect of like keeping it like the furry aspect of my life like separated from my regular life is because like most of the time I've ever had any like encounters like dating or like regular relationships, people just like to cause drama, especially online. Like I don't know why, like that's just everybody's like scapegoat. It's just, oh, I'm gonna cause a bunch of drama, and like nobody wants that. Like nobody wants that at all. So I personally am just not like a huge fan of it, and like I think it's kind of gone downhill recently with all the new people. But you could say that about anything. I could say that about Counter-Strike, or I could say that about like, I don't know, League of Legends or whatever, Overwatch. So
Because it was like, I used to think like around 5 or so years ago, the furry community was more so just a couple of people that would be involved, and it would just be their own thing. But now I see like it's becoming more of a trendy thing at the moment, where like there's a bunch of people that aren't really that passionate for it, that are that are just joining it. Yeah, it's a mainstream thing. I made a whole video about this, which people called me a freaking hipster for that, and I'm like, yay, thanks. But anyway, but yeah, it's also kind of like how I feel with YouTube. Like YouTube, I also feel like was something that only like specific type of people made, or like not even that many people did. I feel like it was more so of an underground thing, but now everyone's a YouTuber these days, which isn't a bad thing if you want to be into it, but just like a lot of people are into it for other reasons, though, personally, instead of what the real gig is, just be making videos.
Yeah. I think it's funny. I'm just gonna go off on a tangent here. Is like everybody's like, oh, like I want YouTube, I want to be famous, I want money, I want blah 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 blah, and it's not like that's not like my goal. Like my original goal, other than, well, first off, my very first videos were like animation related. It was like, hey, I need a place to put my animations, so in case my computer crashed, which it did recently, I wouldn't lose them. I could just pull them up and I could watch them again if I wanted to look back. But shortly afterwards, I started posting like Counter-Strike videos, and the idea behind them was to get give people help. Help people out, give them tutorials, like, hey, I want to get better at the game, like, let me help you. So, that's what that is, and that was my goal originally whenever I started making videos, was to, like, help people and do that, and I don't know, that was the whole goal.
I understand. Other than that, I also feel like when it comes to like animating and such on YouTube, like they're like the ones that get really like screwed over in the end, because animation is such a long drawn out process that you can only really make quality of animation when you have you taking a lot of time to do it. But however, YouTube is a system where you have to crank out a lot of stuff if you want to be like financially successful with it.
Yeah, it really sucks. I remember like watching like. It's kind of crazy, like, with all of, like, the things. If you go back and you, like, or, I mean, for those of you who remember, who've been with YouTube for a little while, and it kind of, I guess, depends on the community you're with. I remember, like, literally there was one day when, like, all of these animators I watched, they all posted a video, and it was, like, them, like just there. It was, like me sitting in front of my camera, pissed off and upset. They were like, I can't keep doing this. They're like, I'm going to go to, like, Patreon. I'm going to go somewhere else. I can't keep posting these videos on YouTube because it's not paying my bills. Like, I'm going to have to go find another job or something because YouTube keeps screwing me out of, like, ad revenue because I only upload, like twice a month. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Am I still here? Hold on. Okay, cool. Sorry.
That's cool. And yeah, that's kind of like one of the things that's like one of my biggest fears about YouTube, is that I feel like YouTube is like, maybe if they keep up at the pace they're going, they're nearing its end, because usually eventually if you're going to continuously, frustrate, the people that use your site by doing things that are more so frustrating them or screwing them over in the end, people are going to eventually go and find something else to integrate to for their content.
Yeah.
Like, same thing happened with MySpace from like over 10 years ago. Everyone got pissed off at the way they were handling things, and then they went to Facebook. So
yeah, I think what it is, and I think that what is going to be happening relatively soon, is somebody's going to be like, hey, like, Google, you're doing it wrong.
mm-hmm.
I can do it better. Watch me do it better. And I feel like, I don't know for sure, like I said, I was never into Facebook or MySpace. I never did that. That just wasn't me. I was on, like, DeviantArt.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing. So, but like I said, like I feel like that's probably how it happened. Is like, that what's his name, Mark Zuckerberg. He was like, yeah, you're doing a bad job. Let me do your job for you. Let me do it better, and these people will support me because I do a good job. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is DeviantArt like a still relevant website these days? Not at all.
It's for children.
Oh. I usually always saw it as like the Sonic fans, the bronies, and the furries that were originally on DeviantArt, and now the furries are on FA, and I think even furries are getting pissed off at FA, but they're always saying that they're getting pissed off at FA, but they always come back.
Yeah,
so
that's always been the thing. The problem that I have with DeviantArt, there's lots of problems I have with DeviantArt, but I'm not going to go into that. Most of the people who use it are like, that is the go-to like art posting site. So there's lots of art there. Like, don't get me wrong, there's lots of art there. But like, if you're not like one of these, like if you're not like a furry or you're not like into anime, I'm sure anime has their own like FA or whatever. But if you're not into like one of those mainstream like things, you're kind of stuck going to DeviantArt, and you're just thrown into a huge mash of just like everybody else's content. So.
And it's harder to like get exposure if you're trying to create your own like art piece or make your own following.
Yeah, my favorite things. Here's the story time. Story time with Adam. Here it is.
Okay.
All of my artist friends, they always like talk to me, and they're like, the hardest thing about being an artist is trying to get somebody to sit down and actually look at your work. So it is super hard, especially like YouTube or like anything you do. It's always hard to get somebody to sit down and be like, yeah, that's pretty good, or I want to watch that. So.
Makes sense. I feel like we kind of like went and derailed from the main source we were talking about. So if you want to go back to the main subject of furries, since we went from that to MySpace and YouTube and stuff, but to DeviantArt. Next thing I have to ask is, or I never really mentioned my part of like what I think of the community as a whole for furries. I personally would say I don't try to view the furry community as, in a negative light. So I don't like to look at it in a cynical aspect personally, but I am. No, I at least still, be self-aware of like the problems with it. Because don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things about furries that really do get me really annoyed. Since there's like a lot of labeling, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of, I'd say personally, entitlement from certain people, but not all of them. Right. But I keep myself not cynical because I noticed that like they tend to survive, and they're still able to be like a at least a still relevant community since like the 80s and such, because they're not really like a community that's based off of like a form of media or art that like eventually all forms of media tend to die out. I'm not sure about art though, but yeah, I think and there are certain people in there that kind of like I do think save it in a way by still keeping it cool heads, and I feel like those people keep it going. So I try to be as hopeful as I can for the community, and like I think that they're not really going to die out any soon as long as they don't keep making the same mistakes that they have been doing for the past few years. Oh, my bad. But you keep doing for the past few years. But yeah, the last thing I feel like we could go into is, I'd say the last thing is what you could personally predict of where you would see the furry community going in like the future. Let's say like 5 to 10 years from now or so. Like where would you see the furry community being personally? And this is just all predictions, so you don't have to like feel like you have to have the right answer.
In 5 years, I'm going to be super famous. I'm going to be invited to every FurCon as a special guest. Me and you both. That's what's going to happen in 5 years.
I doubt that. I'm not PewDiePie style.
It's funny. Anyway, I don't know. Like, it's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to be like mainstream. It's just like that's just like how it happens. It's already got such a big fan base. It's just going to continue to grow unless something stupid happens, but I doubt it. So.
I mean, like for the community as a whole, not just involving for like yourself. But I get what you mean.
That's what I'm talking about. I was talking about the community as a whole. It's so
And
easy to sit somebody down and be like, hey, do you like Mickey Mouse? Do you like whatever? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, well, you're furry.
and I wouldn't say I would really. I don't think I would personally be liking to have like the furry fandom be involved with like a business venture, like being like a person to like support a con and such, because there have been certain problems I noticed with cons and such, which I don't know if you heard about the whole To the Ranting Griffin situation at Anthrocon, what happened like a month or two ago.
No. I kind of
Well,
just sit in my own little bubble down here where
yeah.
censored.
Yeah. And I don't want to get into a too controversial topic, but for the people listening, they can you can pretty much look it up yourself. But to give like a whole a little summarization, it's a little bit of like a censorship thing and kind of that, and also just it makes me lead to like maybe not wanting to like associate too much with certain parts of the fandom or certain business ventures the fandom goes into, like certain cons and certain fursuit maker productions companies and such.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I got that. Do you feel like the furry fandom tends to go through a mutation in terms of like the way it acts and the way the people are and the way conventions go and such?
Yeah, I mean, this is a perfect lead up to the thing that I was going to talk about. So after this, I think we'll head on over and swoop into my section of it if we're cool.
Okay.
So we'll cut that out. But yeah, I believe that there's changes, like at least in behavior. For me, I know there's a huge change in like my behavior whenever like I'm at like said convention. People do act differently. What it is there's a lot of the times it's like you're meeting somebody like face to face, usually, that you've only ever like seen text from or like seen on like Skype or seen somewhere else. So like I guess like usually like you're experiencing like lots of new things, so you're acting differently. You probably want to try and have like your best face on and try to be super friendly and all that stuff to try and make these people that you meet like think you're, I guess, cool, or like woo them and make sure that they don't hate you the moment they meet you.
I understand what you mean with that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I would really have to say involving, the furry community and how, like, what we really discussed in terms of, like, where we feel like it's going. And, we both have, like, somewhat similar mindsets and, we can agree to disagree on certain things. That's in at least a peaceful manner.
That's true.
And so that's pretty much going to wrap up my half of this part. Go check out Hysterical Hyena's channel and subscribe to him and follow whatever extra social media he has. And also go and see part 2 on his channel. There'll be a link in the description to that, and there will also be an end card at the end of this video to really link you directly to that video as well, and subscribe to his channel. Pretty much anything else you have to say before we cut off?
Thanks for watching.
All right then. So I guess we'll see you guys next time. So I've been SeetherCord.
And I've been Hysteria, also known as Hysterical Hyena.
And we will see you guys in part 2. So goodbye, everyone.
See ya.